Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we sift through stacks of fascinating sources, articles, research, specialized notes to bring you the essential knowledge you need, complete with surprising facts and context.
And this time, we are really stepping into another world.
We are. We're leaving geopolitics and finance behind and plunging directly into the historic and, I have to say, highly sophisticated kitchen of classic Italian cooking.
And when we say classic, we really mean it in a way that modern cooking, rarely achieves. This deep dive is a culinary expedition. It's a version of Italian food that goes so far beyond that simple rustic reputation it sometimes gets today.
Right.
Looking at this material, which, it spans everything from intricate sauces to multi-day meat preparations, it's just so clear we're decoding a cuisine built not just on fresh ingredients, but on foundational techniques and this rigorous, almost French-inspired precision.
Okay, so let's unpack the mission for today. Our job is to extract the most important and I think the most surprising nuggets from this extensive collection of recipes.
And the scope is it's immediately striking.
It really is. It covers the absolute basics, like something called a condiment for seasoning minestra, and then it goes right up to these highly regional and complex desserts like Panforte di Siena.
Not to mention the multiple preparations for luxury ingredients like anamel or sweetbread.
We'll definitely get to those.
Yeah.
But the underlying philosophy here, I think that's the real story.
It is. If you track the core instructions across these various pages, you immediately see a few sort of non-negotiable standards for the classic chef.
What stands out to you?
Well, there's an almost religious emphasis on starting with and maintaining a good stock. That phrase comes up again and again.
Good stock, yes.
And we see the repeated use of highly specialized, often French-derived sauces, Espagnole, Bechamel, and there's even one called New Century.
Which is fascinating.
And a constant obsession with controlling the intensity of flavor through precise cooking and, crucially, timing. This tells you that foundational expertise wasn't something you developed later. It was the absolute starting point. It was the price of admission to this kitchen.
And that expertise begins before you even touch the main ingredients. So let's jump straight into what I consider the single most important recipe in the entire collection, precisely because it isn't a dish.
Right.
It's a foundational flavor profile. We're talking about a condiment for seasoning ministry. This recipe, for me, it just sets the entire tone for refinement and concentration.
It absolutely does. And when you first look at the ingredients, you might just dismiss it. You might think, okay, it's a standard vegetable base, essentially a sofrito.
Sure, it calls for 1 piece of onion, 1 carrot, 1 celery stick, 2 mushrooms, 1 tomato, a pinch of salt, some butter, and some good stock. Simple, right?
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But then the instructions take this sharp turn away from simplicity. This is not just frying vegetables.
No, this is flavor extraction via meat.
Exactly. You start by chopping the celery, onion, and carrot and frying them in butter with salt. That's the sofrito part we all know. But then, and this is the crucial step, you have to add some cut-up veal and little slices of cooked ham, along with the mushrooms and tomato pulp.
So you're transforming what was a simple vegetable base into this intensely flavored, concentrated meat and vegetable reduction. It's like an umami core.
You're concentrating all those deep, savory flavors. The instructions say to cook this for about 15 minutes, keeping the mixture moist by occasionally adding some stock.
But here's my immediate question, the one that tells us everything about their priority. Why go to all that trouble adding valuable meat, only to separate it out later?
The answer is texture and purity. The instruction is very clear. You must pass mixture, though, Siv.
And that's the clue, isn't it?
It's the whole story. They are not looking for chunky, rustic seasoning.
Well,
They're extracting the pure, concentrated, liquid flavor essence. The richness from the butter, the deep, savory notes from the ham and veal, the sweetness from the vegetables, but leaving behind all the fibrous remnants. The goal is a smooth, highly refined puree.
So it's culinary engineering. You're creating this powerful liquid essence that you can add almost invisibly to enhance a dish.
And the application confirms this. It says you use this to season minestrone, rice, macaroni, and so on. But, and get this, the mixture must be poured only when the food is almost cooked.
It's a finishing move, a depth charge of flavor, not a cooking medium.
That principal flavor through laborious refinement is the defining feature of this whole classic Italian kitchen. And they apply the exact same ruthless precision to the dessert side, as we see in the amaretti leggeri or almond cakes.
Okay, so the ingredients for the amaretti, on the surface, they seem simple enough. You've got sweet almonds, bitter almonds, castor sugar, and egg white beaten till stiff.
But the recipe demands a specific, non-negotiable ratio. It says you must use equal quantities of the sweet and bitter almonds. And this ratio is vital for that intense, complex, almost aggressive flavor profile of a classic amaretti.
It's the bitter almonds that give it that kick, right?
Yes, they contain a compound that provides that distinct, almost challenging almond aroma when it's cooked. You have to handle it just so.
The technique is also, I would say, highly technical pastry work. You blanch the almonds, then crucially you have to dry them inside an oven before pounding them on the mortar. Why that drying step?
Well, if you try pounding almonds that are still damp from blanching, you end up with an oily paste, almost like a nut butter.
Ah, okay.
Drying them out first ensures they grind into a fine, light powder. That powder will properly absorb the sugar and egg white without separating. After pounding, you add the sugar, specifically double their quantity of sugar, and then you combine that with the stiffly beaten egg white. You're essentially creating a stable meringue paste.
And the sizing instruction is so charmingly traditional. You shape them into small balls, pigeon egg size. But the final instruction for the oven is maybe the most important technical detail of all. Bake inside a very slow oven.
And that very slow oven is the difference between an amaretti cookie and, say, an amaretti macaron. It's not about rapid baking or setting the dough.
It's about slow, gentle.
Desiccation, yes. The slow heat evaporates the moisture in the meringue and nut mixture, and that yields that perfect, slightly chewy, but mostly dry, crisp texture that defines a successful almond cake.
If the foundational recipes emphasize refinement, the next set of recipes dedicated almost entirely to anamel, or sweetbread, they really emphasize the luxuriousness and versatility of this classic ingredient. The sources give us 4 distinct methods for preparing this delicate organ meat, which just shows its high status in this kitchen.
And we can actually track the technical demand by comparing the recipes.
Yeah.
Let's start with the simplest one, anamel alla parmigiana. The ingredients are pretty straightforward. Sweetbreads, breadcrumbs, grated Parmesan cheese, salt, pepper, and butter.
It sounds like a breaded cutlet preparation, which is, a pretty common way to handle it.
It is. You first blanch the sweetbreads. Then you mix your dry ingredients, the breadcrumbs, grated cheese, salt, and pepper, and you roll the blanched sweetbreads in this mixture. But the cooking method is unique.
We do.
You wrap up on buttered, grease-proof paper, grill.
So the grease-proof paper wrapper is basically a quick, controlled, and cartoccio method.
Exactly. It uses the butter and the moisture in the sweetbread to gently steam it, keeping it moist while the outer breading gets a little crisp from the direct heat of the grill.
And then it's just served.
Yep. Once cooked, you remove the wrapper and serve them with a good sauce. It relies entirely on the quality of the sweetbread and, of course, the quality of that pre-made sauce.
Now contrast that simplicity with the Anamel all'Italiana. This is a true masterclass in classical European cooking. It's incorporating multiple sauces, binders, garnishes.
The ingredient list is a journey in itself. We're talking sweetbreads, butter, onion, salt, herbs, 2 cups of white sauce, 4 egg yolks, more butter, a teaspoon of glaze, and critically, Espagnole sauce.
This recipe is a textbook example of utilizing those French foundations that were so influential in high-end Italian cuisine during this period.
Absolutely. You start by blanching the sweetbreads, cutting them into quarters, and then you gently saute them with butter, onion, herbs, and salt. Then you add the white sauce and cook it slowly for 20 minutes. It's a slow infusion of flavor.
And after that infusion, the sweetbreads are taken out and placed onto a double boiler. We have to pause here because this is a crucial piece of equipment that just signals the delicacy of the next steps.
A double boiler, or a bain-marie, is necessary for gentle, indirect heat. You place the sweetbreads in there to keep them warm and tender, but the main reason is for finishing the sauce, which uses those egg yolks.
Right, you can't use direct heat with yolks.
No, it would be a disaster. So while the sweetbreads are holding, the remaining sauce is left to reduce intensely. Then you combine the egg yolks, glaze, and butter, and add this rich liaison onto the reduced sauce. If you did that over direct heat, the yolks would scramble instantly.
And just like with the Minister condiment, we see that absolute priority of smoothness. The recipe says you must pass mixture through the sieve and then pour this sieved, emulsified mixture over the sweetbreads, keeping them warm in that double boiler. The texture must be flawless.
But the presentation is what elevates this dish to, culinary art. It is truly architectural.
It is. You prepare risotto all'Italiana, which is another detailed foundational recipe in itself, and then you place it onto a border mold with arranged truffle slices on its inside.
A risotto border mold. That is not a weeknight tool. That's for shaping a precise ring of rice inside which you've placed slices of truffle. You're essentially turning the risotto into a fancy edible vessel.
Exactly. And this entire molded risotto is then warmed in the oven. Finally, you place the sauced sweetbreads into the center of the risotto ring, and then you fill the space with fowl quenelles and sauce espagnole.
It's just layer upon layer of technique. You have delicate meat, a gentle sauce, a precisely sieved finish, a structured starch base, and high-status garnishes like truffles and light mousse-like fowl quenelles.
Then we see the animal in cartoccio again, focusing more on that paper package method. This time it's using sweetbread cuttings mixed with melted butter, chopped herbs, salt, pepper, breadcrumbs, and Parmesan.
And the dish is placed onto paper soufflé cases and baked until it's brown.
So the paper soufflé case allows for individual servings and keeps everything contained.
Right, it keeps the butter and juices right there for maximum flavor transfer before the top browns. It's served with good gravy and lemon juice or a tomato sauce. Simple, but refined.
And finally, animal lardelette, which focuses on the technique of larding. Ingredients here are 2 pieces of sweetbreads, lard, stock, and vegetable macedonia.
Here the focus is on achieving a smooth, integrated glaze. You blanch and lard, the sweetbreads larding being that process of inserting strips of fat into lean meat to ensure moisture and richness.
A very old technique.
Very old. They're cooked gently with good stock, which is skimmed of impurities. The stock is then reduced until it forms a smooth glaze that just coats the sweetbreads.
And the arrangement is, again, very elaborate.
It is. You cut the glazed sweetbreads into 3 or 4 pieces, arrange them on a round dish, and glaze them again. And then, get this, you put a cup-shaped bread on the middle and fill it with vegetable macedonia.
So you're using a shaped piece of bread, maybe toasted and hollowed out, as a decorative centerpiece and a container.
An edible display. It speaks to the highly structured table service of the era.
Before we move on, we have to touch on the costa di vitello imborrachiate, or ribs of veal, because it introduces one of those mystery sauces we noted earlier.
Yes, the new century sauce.
This dish demands careful prep. You remove the sinews from the ribs or neck, cover the meat with much butter, and half-cook it over a low fire. Why the emphasis on sinew removal and that initial cooling step?
Where sinew, or connective tissue, shrinks and it toughens meat during cooking. Removing it first just guarantees a uniformly tender product, which is paramount for this kind of high-end cuisine.
And the cooling.
The cooling step is essential for what comes next. It allows that initial buttery crust to set before you egg the meat over and roll it in crumbs with Parmesan. If the meat were hot, the coating would just slide right off.
After cooling and breading, it's fried with butter and served with sauce and sautéed parsley. And here's where we encounter that obscure term. The source suggests about a spoon of some new century with 14-pint stock, thick, would make a fine sauce.
The New Century reference is so fascinating. It likely refers to a sauce composition or a modification that became popular around the turn of the century. Maybe it signals a slightly lighter, more modern take on the classic French brown sauce tradition, like a refined, less heavy demi-glace.
So the name itself suggests this kitchen wasn't static.
Exactly. It was incorporating contemporary, often French-derived innovations while maintaining traditional Italian ingredient choices. It tells us that true mastery meant being conversant in both classical French technique and Italian regional flavor.
Let's shift our focus to larger protein preparations, where the techniques involve a lot of patience, long marination, and precise control over heat and moisture. We can start with coscia di manzo al forno or rump steak.
And the ingredients really detail a rich braise. You have rump steak, ham, salt, pepper, spice, 3 to 4 slices of fat bacon, onion stock, and half a glass of white wine.
It's a classic larded braise.
It is. You start by larding the rump, and the recipe specifically mentions larding the ham cut in bits as well, seasoning everything. You brown this slightly for a few minutes with butter before covering it with bacon, and then placing it into a stew pan with onion, stock, plus the white wine.
It's a covered cook, braising for about an hour, but then we get that crucial fine print instruction on flavor control that we've seen so consistently.
The garlic.
Yes. Garlic can be added for 10 minutes.
This is a hallmark of truly skilled classic cooking. Garlic, if you cook it for too long, can become acrid, bitter, and it can just dominate the subtle flavors of the long-braised meat and wine.
So by adding it only for the final 10 minutes,
you achieve a fragrant infusion of garlic aroma, which dissipates before it can spoil the richness of the sauce. That short time window speaks volumes about the level of control expected from the chef.
Now, contrast that slow richness with the costolette di montone alla Sarda, the mutton cutlets. This recipe from Nice relies heavily on acid and spice for the pre-treatment.
And the pre-treatment is almost 2 hours long. You trim the cutlets, and then you marinate them for a full 2 hours in herbs, spice, and vinegar.
That's a long soak.
It's vital for tenderizing the mutton and cutting through any of that natural gaminess before you cook it. You have to wipe them well to remove the excess liquid before you fry them in butter.
And the test for doneness is entirely tactile. There's no thermometer here. It says, when two sides are well colored and they resist when poked, you drain the butter.
That phrase, resist when poked, that is the accumulated wisdom of a cook who understands exactly how firm mutton should feel when it's perfectly cooked.
It really is.
And once it's drained, the finishing sauce is built right there in the pan. 4 tablespoons of Espagnole, 1 teaspoon of vinegar, plus 6 peppercorns, bruised. That second hit of vinegar and the bruised peppercorns are added right at the end to lift that rich Espagnole sauce.
The garnishing here is just breathtakingly complex for a cutlet dish. You arrange the cutlets on the dish, placing 1 crouton between every cutlet.
Right.
But the garnish itself is its own recipe. Stuff olives with minced mushrooms, then fry cucumber slices. Use these for garnishing.
So a single mutton cutlet garnish involves preparing 2 other complex items, stuffed olives and fried cucumber. This tells you 2 things. First, this was a high-status dish, and second, the chef was aiming for a complex, multi-textured experience.
You've got the savory mutton, the crunchy crouton, the salty, earthy olives, and the warm, soft cucumber slices. It's a whole composition.
Moving to veal again, the frittura piccata al marsala, or fillet of veal, requires a quick, high-heat technique to preserve its tenderness. The ingredients are veal steak, butter, marsala, stock, fried bacon, and lemon juice.
The preparation demands perfection in the cut. It says to fillet the steak, removing all stringy and fat parts. You then flour the fillets and fry them with butter.
But the key is what happens next. When they're slightly browned, you add the marsala plus the stock, and importantly, you fry over high heat so fillets stay tender.
So this high-heat, rapid reduction method, the complete opposite of the long braise, ensures the marsala and stock reduce quickly to a syrupy sauce, while the delicate veal cooks in just seconds.
Exactly. It avoids the toughness that would result from low, slow cooking. You remove it from the fire when it's cooked, add fried bacon over each fillet, plus a few little lemon drops, and serve. It's a precise balance of acidity, richness, and speed.
And now we come to the showstopper, the truly historic, completely unexpected recipe, manzo con sugo di barbabietole, or fillet of beef with beetroot juice.
This is a glimpse into ancient European preservation and flavoring techniques. This preparation utilizes fermentation.
The ingredients are deceptively simple. It's just rump steak or fillet, 3 beetroots, and a pinch of salt. But the prep is an act of extreme patience.
Can you walk us through the fermentation process? Because it sounds almost medieval.
It does. You chop the beetroots and put them into a pot, covering them with enough water. Then the waiting begins. You have to ferment this for 5 to 8 days, depending on season, in a temperate place.
And how do you know it's working?
The signal that fermentation has started is the froth covering water. This frothing indicates the production of natural acids and all these complex flavor compounds.
So you're basically creating a homemade, naturally acidic cooking liquid, a beet sour.
That's a great way to put it. After 5 to 8 days, the beetroots are removed, the froth is skimmed off, and then the beef is put directly into this fermented liquid with a little salt.
And here is the commitment. You have to braise this for 4 hours before serving.
4 hours.
That 4-hour braise is doing 2 things. First, the long cooking breaks down the tough collagen in the beef, making it incredibly tender. Second, the acidity of that fermented beetroot liquid acts as a tenderizer, and it infuses the meat with a deep, earthy, slightly sour complexity that, commercial marinades simply cannot replicate. It's the ultimate expression of slow food.
To finish the beef section, let's look at manzo marinato arrosto, or marinated beef. This is another long prep involving larding and chilling. Ingredients are beef, salt, larding bacon, half a pint of burgundy, half a glass of vinegar, spice, herbs, and flour.
This preparation begins with manual tenderization by beating the beef. Then you season it with salt and chopped herbs, and you leave it for about an hour before larding it. And then the extensive marinade follows. Burgundy, vinegar, spices, and herbs.
The source material is very clear about the timing here. This marination lasts for a full 24 hours.
A whole day. After draining, you sprinkle the beef with flour, roast it for about 20 minutes, and then braise it until it's tender. But the final steps are what define the serving style.
Yes, the beef must be pressed, then glazed. And critically, you serve this cool.
So this method is designed to create a firm, sliceable roast, almost like a high-end terrine or a pâté, served cold, glistening under that glaze. The source even notes that the sirloin's thin end will be excellent when cooked like this, specifying the ideal cut for this lengthy, cold preparation.
Shifting to vegetables and starches, we continue to see that same dedication to complex sauces, specific layering, and technical precision. These are definitely not simple boiled vegetables.
Not at all. Let's look at asparagi a la salsa suprema, asparagus on page 10.
The ingredient list for asparagus is staggering for what is essentially a side dish. You've got asparagus cut to 1-inch pieces, salt, butter, nutmeg, Parmesan, supreme sauce, gravy, more fresh butter, and lemon juice.
You see that layering of fat and pre-made sauce components right away.
So the process starts by cooking the asparagus pieces in boiling salted water. You drain them, place them on a pan. Then you add the melted butter, nutmeg, a little salt and cheese, sautéing for a few minutes. Then you incorporate a little supreme sauce.
And the finishing sequence is an enrichment technique. It says, when almost done, you rapidly add a small amount of gravy, a small amount of lemon juice, and the fresh butter.
So you're glazing and saucing the vegetable with this multi-layered, highly rich finish. You're using supreme sauce, which is typically a velouté enriched with cream or egg yolks, plus a reduction, which is the gravy, and a final swirl of fresh butter for sheen and richness.
Next up, barbabietola alla parmigiana, or beetroot. A simple preparation, but the cheese pairing is highly unusual. The ingredients are beetroot, white sauce, and grated cheese. But the cheese specified is Parmesan and cheddar.
Cheddar. That's a significant historical footnote, isn't it?
It is. While Parmesan is the quintessential Italian cheese, the inclusion of cheddar, a foreign, harder, sharper cheese, often cheaper than high-quality Parmesan, suggests either regional or maybe economic adaptations happening at the time.
So maybe it was used for its superior melting quality, or it was just a more readily available sharp flavor?
Could be. You boil the beetroot, slice it, place it on a fireproof dish, cover it with a thick white sauce, strew the dual cheeses over it, and bake it immediately.
We see a similar duality in the cauliflower alla parmigiana, which uses cauliflower, butter, both Parmesan and cheddar stock, and 1 tablespoon of espagnole sauce.
Again, the use of espagnole, that rich brown sauce, on a white vegetable like cauliflower is not intuitive, but it would add this deep, meaty richness.
Walk us through it.
You boil the cauliflower, saute it in butter with the very specific instruction. Don't overcook, strew the grated cheeses over it, and transfer it to a baking dish. The final addition of espagnole and stock then allows it to bake for 10 minutes, which binds the cheese and enhances the flavor far beyond a simple cheese sauce.
The cavalli de Bruxelles à la Savoyarde, Brussels sprouts, also relies on a complex saucing. Ingredients include sprouts, fresh butter, very good stock, salt, pepper, Parmesan, 3 tablespoons of bechamel sauce, and croutons.
After boiling and draining the sprouts, you place them on a pie dish with fresh butter, stock, cheese, and pepper. The goal here is a perfect glaze, meaning the stock and butter reduced to a shiny coating.
And then critically, once they're glazed well, you take its sauce out.
Yes, the sprouts are removed from their cooking glaze, and then the dish is served with the independently seasoned boiling bechamel sauce alongside croutons. This prevents the delicate bechamel from becoming greasy from all that glazing butter.
Let's turn to starches with gnocchi alla lombarda. This potato-based gnocchi preparation details 2 really key technical steps. The ingredients are potatoes, flour, a beaten egg, butter, and both Parmesan and cheddar again.
The technical foundation relies on the perfect texture of the potato. After boiling the potatoes till they're cooked through, you must pass them through the hair sieve.
A hair sieve. That step is non-negotiable for traditional gnocchi. It ensures the potato is light and fluffy. It eliminates any lumps, which is essential for a tender finished product.
Exactly. You combine this sieved potato with flour, beaten egg, and milk to form a firm and smooth paste.
And here's the time commitment required for proper execution. You roll the paste out to a shape like German sausage, you cut it into 34-inch rounds, and you place them in a larder, letting them dry at about 30 minutes.
That half-hour drying time is the key to stability. If you drop freshly cut gnocchi into boiling water, they can often just dissolve because the surface is too moist.
So letting them dry forms a slight skin.
It does, and that ensures they hold their shape perfectly during the 10 minutes of boiling. They are then sliced, layered with butter and lots of grated cheeses in a baking dish, and baked for 10 minutes.
Our last vegetable dish is the insalata di patate, or potato salad. When you look at the ingredients for this potato salad, you realize it's an undertaking worthy of a main course.
The list is just incredible. New potatoes, salad oil, white vinegar, onion, parsley, tarragon, chervil, celery, whipped cream, salt and pepper, watercress, tarragon vinegar, slices of truffle, thin cooked in white wine, and slices of cooked cucumber.
This is a statement piece. The precision starts immediately. After steaming, cooling, and slicing the potatoes and pouring over the oil and vinegar, the first step for the bowl is rub onion on the salad bowl.
So the flavor is introduced purely by scent and contact, not by adding actual pieces of raw onion that might overwhelm the delicate herbs. That is subtle control.
Absolutely. Then you execute this precise layering, sliced potatoes in one layer, then you sprinkle parsley, chervil, celery, and tarragon. And you repeat the layering until the potatoes are used up.
And the dressing, which is a secondary creamy sauce, combines cream, tarragon vinegar, salt, and pepper. It's mixed thoroughly before being poured over the whole layered structure.
And the high-effort garnish is truly magnificent. You garnish with watercress, some thin truffle, and cucumber slices. We're talking about a potato salad where the truffles have been cooked in white wine before being sliced and used purely for visual and aromatic impact.
This is not casual dining. This is opulence disguised as a side dish.
Moving on to the minestra, or soups, we continue to see a reliance on high-quality stock and very precise timing. Minestra alla cappuccina is an unusual rice and anchovy soup, focusing on dissolving the fish into the base.
The ingredients are anchovy, boiled rice, a small onion, butter, and of course, good stock.
The preparation focuses on achieving a deeply savory, smooth consistency.
Yes, you scale and pound the anchovy, ensuring it's pulverized for maximum flavor release. You then fry the onion, rice, and that pounded anchovy together. Put in some salt, and when the rice turns golden, you remove the onions.
So again, the onion is just a temporary flavor infusion device. It's used during the frying stage, and then it's discarded so its texture doesn't interfere.
Exactly. Then you slowly add stock until the dish becomes as smooth as pudding. Rice. It's essentially a rich, savory rice porridge built on a foundation of refined stock and dissolved, highly concentrated anchovy saltiness.
Then we have the minestra alla casalinga, the household soup, and this is where the classical kitchen really comes full circle. The ingredients are rice, butter, any vegetables, and lots of good stock.
This is the soup that ties right back to the foundation. After blanching, draining, and frying the vegetables with butter, you add lots of stock and put it over a low fire. You boil rice separately with stock. When it's cooked, you add the rice to the vegetables.
But the crucial instruction that connects this recipe to the entire repertoire is
season this with condiment for seasoning minestra.
So the fundamental savory veal and ham reduction that was so laboriously sieved and refined in the very first recipe we discussed is mandatory for seasoning the household soup.
It just shows that the foundational high-effort techniques underpin even the simplest dishes.
Then we have the minestra of rice and turnips, which contains a fascinating instruction for the turnips. The ingredients are young turnips, butter, well-washed rice, gravy, and mashed tomatoes.
And the pre-treatment of the turnips is what stands out. You slice the turnips and place them on a dish. You sprinkle them with salt, cover them, and let them stand until water runs out for around 2 hours.
Why that long wait time?
It's a brining or a desiccation step. Young turnips especially can sometimes be overly bitter or watery. This process draws out the excess moisture and possibly some of those sharper, bitter compounds. It ensures the finished product is perfectly soft and sweet when it's cooked.
I see. So you drain the slices, fry them with butter, pour in the tomatoes and gravy, then add boiling stock and rice and boil it for 30 minutes.
And the accompanying observation here is a wonderful commentary on regional differences. The recipe warns, when minestra boils for too long, flavor is lost.
But then it adds a counterpoint.
It does, it says. But in Lombardy, they seldom boil macaroni, rice, etc. enough.
That's gold. It tells us that the author or the compiler had specific textural preferences, maybe a softer, fully cooked grain, and was actively critiquing the preference of another region, Lombardy, which favored a firmer, more al dente preparation.
That brief note highlights a subtle but persistent divergence in classical Italian texture standards.
Finally, minestrone alla Milanese. This is the ultimate mixed vegetable soup. The ingredients are all possible kinds of vegetables, stock, ham, bacon, and rice or macaroni.
This preparation emphasizes logistical timing. You boil the veggies with stock, adding ham, bacon, onions cooked with butter, a garlic clove, specifically with 2 cuts, and the starch. The instruction stresses, Veggies that take a longer time to cook must be mixed in first.
Which is common sense, really, but elevated to a rule to ensure uniform doneness.
And once again, the flavor control around garlic is paramount. Don't make broth very thin and leave garlic for 15 minutes only. Just 15 minutes to infuse the aroma before it's removed.
We finished the soup section with the delightful soup alla nazionale, which literally translates to national soup.
And it uses color to express patriotism. The ingredients are savory custard, tomato, spinach, and a clear soup.
The simplicity of the execution is brilliant in its visual impact. You divide the savory custard into 3 portions. The first is left as is for white, the second is mixed with tomato for red, and the third with spinach for green.
Creating the Italian flag colors.
Exactly. You arrange these 3 colors in distinct layers on a greased saucepan, cook it for 10 minutes to set the layers, and then you cut the resulting tricolor block into dices.
And these small dices, proudly displaying the national flag, are then served floating in a good, clear soup. It's a moment of culinary symbolism and a high-end novelty presentation.
Now we turn to seafood and other intricate savory dishes. Mullet alla Trisestina is the simplest of the fish preparations, suitable for mullet, turbot, or sole. Ingredients are the fish, butter, salt, 1 squeezed lemon, and a half glass of Chablis.
And this preparation is all about gentle infusion. You put the fish onto a fireproof dish along with the butter, lemon extract, Chablis, and salt. You then heat it over a very low fire, turning the fish whenever necessary.
So the emphasis on a very low fire means you're essentially poaching the fish in an acidic butter wine emulsion.
Exactly, which ensures it remains incredibly moist and delicate.
Immediately contrasting that delicacy, we have pesce alla genovese, sole or turbot, which is a much richer, heavier dish defined by its sauce complexity.
Just look at the sheer length of the ingredient list for this sauce. You have the fish, butter, cut up carrot, celery, parsley, nutmeg, onion, garlic, salt, a scaled anchovy, pepper, mushrooms, mashed tomato, flour, and spices.
This is not a simple fish sauce. It's practically a highly customized brown sauce base, something traditionally reserved for meat, but adapted for fish.
It is.
Yeah.
Can you unpack the heavy sauce technique for us? How is that flavor built?
So you fry the onion in butter first, then add the chopped carrot, celery, parsley, plus the scaled anchovy, which is intended to dissolve in butter.
And that anchovy is the critical element.
Absolutely. It melts away, creating this deep, savory, umami-rich foundation that provides the necessary salt and complexity before any other seasonings are added. You put in the sliced fish, spices, and pepper, simmer for a few minutes, then add the mushrooms, flour, and mashed tomato. You mix it all together and cook for a final 20 minutes. The richness is just profound.
Let's return to the obscure meats with Minuta alla Milanese, or lamb sweetbread. This uses a mixture of highly valued variety meats. The ingredients are lamb sweetbread, coxcombs, fowl liver, flour, butter, onion, Chablis, stock, herbs, and risotto all'italiana.
This is a recipe for the truly adventurous and high-status kitchen. Coxcombs, the fleshy crests of roosters, were historically considered a delicacy.
A real delicacy. You cut equal quantities of the sweetbreads, coxcombs, and liver into filbert-sized pieces. You flour them, then you slightly fry them on butter with small onion bits.
The sauce creation follows, leveraging the Chablis. You add the wine, herbs, and stock and reduce it.
And to thicken the sauce, you add a liaison. 1 tablespoon of flour and butter fried together. This pre-fried flour and butter roux is mixed in to achieve the desired consistency without clumping.
And like the elaborate sweetbread we discussed earlier, the presentation is very structured.
It is. You arrange the risotto all'italiana on the border of the dish, forming a ring, and then you place the sauced variety meats in the center.
Finally, back to beef with manzo alla Certosina, filet of beef. Ingredients are rump steak, or beef filet, bacon, olive oil, salt, nutmeg, minced anchovies, chopped herbs, and 1 small clove of garlic cut across.
The initial cooking is specific. You put the filet or steak into a stew pan, along with bacon, salt, oil, and nutmeg. It's cooked uncovered, occasionally turning the meat.
So the open cooking allows a deep crust to form before any moisture is added.
Right. Once it browns, you add the flavorings, the anchovies, garlic, and herbs. Then you pour in some stock, cover the pan, and continue cooking.
And here we get that highly specific instruction on timing again, reinforcing the rule from the earlier beef braise, but with a slight variation.
The garlic timing.
Exactly. Remember that garlic must be left in only for about 5 minutes.
Wow. So we've seen 10 minutes and 15 minutes, and now 5 minutes. This 5-minute window for a relatively lean cut like filet, cooked uncovered initially, suggests the chef is seeking the most delicate, transient garlic flavor possible.
Avoiding any pungent or burnt notes.
For sure. And the sauce finish is critical for refinement. Once cooked, you skim the grease from the sauce. Then you pass sauce through sieve before pouring the resulting smooth liquid over the beef. Refinement. Always refinement.
Our final section dives into the world of historical Italian pastries, which are defined by complex mixing techniques, unique ingredients, and architectural construction. Let's start with cake alla Tolentino.
This is essentially an inversion technique. It's truly inventive and visually dramatic. The ingredients are simple enough. A medium sponge cake, jam or red currant jelly, brandy or maraschino, whipped cream, and diced pineapple.
But the construction is what makes this recipe stand out.
It is. You first cut the top of the cake, then you scoop the inside cake, leaving the brown outside part or the case intact.
Okay.
You cover the jam on the outside of this case, and then you decorate the exterior with fancy-shaped white cake cut from the scooped-out inside. So the inside becomes the outside decoration.
That's brilliant. And the remaining cake crumbs aren't wasted.
Not at all. For the filling, you soak the remaining crumbs with brandy or maraschino, you mix them with the diced pineapple and cream, and you fill this mixture into the hollowed cake case. Then you place the fancy-shaped brown cake from the top, back on top. It's a minimal waste, high-effort presentation.
Next, cremona cake. This is a fascinating layered cake that utilizes ground rice and maize instead of traditional wheat flour.
Which would offer maybe a lighter, more tender texture, or maybe it was just catering to historical ingredient availability. The ingredients are eggs, castor sugar, butter, the rice and maize flour, grated orange zest, salt, maraschino-flavored whipped cream, roasted almonds, cherries, and an orange-flavored icing.
The technique demands precise ratios determined by weight. It says you weigh the eggs, then you make equal quantities of sugar, fresh butter, and the ground maize and rice. This mixture is then combined with 3 egg yolks and 1 egg white to make the paste.
And the thickness is measured by this archaic monetary standard. You roll the paste out into 5 shilling thick.
Amazing. After coloring with egg yolk and baking, the round cake is cut into 4 equal pieces.
And the layering is rigorous. You spread the maraschino-flavored cream thickly onto a pastry round, cover it with the next, and you continue the layering until the final top round is placed. The presentation involves covering the cake with orange-flavored icing and decorating it with cherries and almonds.
Genoese pastry focuses on the mixing time. Ingredients are 5 eggs, castor sugar, flour, butter, almonds, melted butter, grated lemon zest, and brandy.
Right. You weigh 4 eggs, then combine them with equal quantities of sugar, flour, and butter. The almonds are pounded and mixed with egg and melted butter. This is added to the main mixture, and the source really emphasizes the work required. You must mix thoroughly for 10 minutes.
That 10-minute mixing time is critical for incorporating air and developing a stable batter structure without the help of modern leavening agents.
It is. Only then do you add the zest and brandy. The final pastry is spread out thinly onto a cookie sheet, covered with grease paper, baked moderately, and then cut to shapes while it's still hot.
Cutting it hot ensures clean, crisp edges before the pastry stiffens.
We move on to ice zabaglione, a frozen version of the classic Italian dessert. It's an ingredient powerhouse. 10 egg yolks, castor sugar, 600 milliliters of marsala, a vanilla stick, cinnamon, lemon peel, maraschino, and rum.
And the key to zabaglione is the gentle heating of the egg yolks and marsala.
You combine the yolks, sugar, marsala, vanilla, lemon, and cinnamon inside a double boiler. Again, essential for gentle heat till it's a little frothy and almost boiling. The goal is emulsification and thickening, not boiling.
Once it's removed from the heat, the aromatics, the cinnamon, zest, and vanilla are discarded, and the mixture is beaten for 1 or 2 minutes.
Then the alcohol is added, the rum and maraschino, and it's poured onto a soufflé dish and placed on an ice to set and freeze.
And it's served with sponge cake and iced wafers?
Yes, to add texture and lightness to that rich, fortified wine-flavored frozen custard.
Our final item is Panforte di Siena, the Sienese hardbake. This is a monument to nuts, spices, and dried fruit.
It is a dense dessert. You've got filberts, candied lemon zest, cinnamon, grated chocolate, corn flour, ground almonds, large wafers, blanched almonds, and critically, pepper, all bound by half a pound of honey.
This is a complex confectionery rooted in the medieval spice trade. The base starts by boiling the honey inside a copper saucepan. The high heat of boiling honey serves as the binder and the structural element.
And into the honey go the nuts, candied zest, cinnamon chocolate, and that surprisingly classic ingredient, little pepper.
Pepper in a dessert. That tells you so much about the historical appreciation for counterpoint and exotic spice in confectionery.
Absolutely. The pepper cuts the sweetness and it enhances the aromatics, You stir thoroughly, slowly adding the flour and ground almonds. After taking it out from the heat, it's spread onto wafers, making each cake 1 inch thick.
And the baking?
After garnishing with almonds and dusting with confectioner's sugar and cinnamon, the baking is slow and patient. Bake slowly for 60 minutes. The slow baking ensures that dense honey base sets properly without scorching the nuts or spices.
So reflecting on this entire repertoire, what stands out isn't just the sheer number of recipes, but the level of culinary discipline required.
The consistent threads are just undeniable. The reliance on high-fat dairy, particularly butter, the foundational requirement for good stock that often needed these long reduction processes, and that explicit connection to French classical technique through sauces like Espagnole and Bechamel.
And the subtle details speak volumes about the expected standard of excellence. We saw the constant use of precision equipment, the hair sieve for pureeing and refining, the double boiler for delicate yolks and custards, and the border molds for architectural presentation.
Even the cheese choices were nuanced. You had the ubiquitous Parmesan right alongside the inclusion of a more accessible foreign cheese like cheddar in certain baked vegetable dishes.
Most importantly, I think we decoded the philosophy of flavor control. That rule against overcooking garlic, leaving it in for only 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, it demonstrates that intensity was strictly managed. You're preventing a simple, rustic flavor from dominating the complex, layered notes built through hours of braising and sieving and reduction.
This deep dive really shows you that historical Italian cooking was far from simple. It required a chef who was simultaneously a meticulous technician, a patient fermenter, and an artist of presentation.
Absolutely. Whether it was the multi-day fermentation for the Manzo con sugo di barbabietole or the layering of national colors in the Supala Nazionale, the goal was high art and demanding execution.
These recipes demand a technical expertise that's equal to any great French kitchen, but it's applied using distinct Italian ingredients and regional flavors. It forces us to reconsider the status of the Italian chef in this era as a master who synthesized the best of European technique with time-honored practices.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? We often gravitate towards the idea of Italian food being simple and rustic, focused purely on pristine ingredients. But these sources reveal a kitchen built on intensive, multi-layered techniques that require immense skill and time. If mastering these fundamental, often obscure preparatory steps like boiling honey in a copper pot or sieving a meaty condiment or keeping garlic transient is the real key to classic Italian excellence, what common, simple ingredient in your own cooking might you be rushing? What foundational step are you skipping that, if mastered, would unlock a secret level of flavor in your favorite dishes?
Something for you to mull over the next time you decide to make a simple broth.